Good afternoon. In the interest of time, good afternoon. I think we'll go ahead and get started. If you're still getting food, just keep on doing that. But we'll begin. Welcome to this session of the International Studies Colloquium. I'm Allison Stanger, Director of the Rohatyn Center for International Affairs here at Middlebury College. And just want to tell you a little bit about the format before handing things over to Elizabeth Robinson, who will introduce the event. Lunch is served throughout the program. There's still a few cookies there. Feel free to go up and get them. We will conclude promptly at 1:30, which is why I was eager to get started. In the interest of time, and because we have so many interesting presentations, the format will be as follows. We will have presentations of 7 to 8 minutes each. I know they'll prompt a lot of questions. These are fabulous projects, but we will hold the questions until the end of the presentations, just to be sure everybody has a chance to present. And now, I'll turn the floor over to Director of the Project on Creativity and Innovation in the Liberal Arts, Elizabeth Robinson.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. I'm going to be brief, too, because today we want to hear from all of them. A couple of years ago, Kathryn Davis, a very well-known internationalist, philanthropist, was about to turn 100 years old, and she wanted to do something special in commemoration of that. And she committed $1 million to 100 projects that were to occur all over the world, done by undergraduate students, giving them each $10,000 each. And that in itself was a wonderful thing. We had 2 Middlebury College projects that were very successful. But she did it again last year. And we've just learned that we've just announced a 3rd year. And this is one of the most exciting programs there is, and you'll see that in a few minutes. For those students who are here today and are interested in applying for next summer, we're going to have an information session at Old Stone Mill next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, and all the students here will be there to answer questions. But right now, you're going to hear from the 2 groups that were funded by the Davis family this past summer, as well as 2 other student groups that receive funding from Middlebury and elsewhere. So we have 4 fantastic projects. So Shabana, you want to begin?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shabana Basij Rasakh, and I'm a sophomore from Afghanistan. Last year, I was a freshman in my first semester here, just last year this time, I heard about Davis Peace Project, and I was all very excited and immediately started writing a proposal. And my very first proposal was to help in my ancestral village where I'm building a school, is to provide them with water-generated electricity. And so I worked really hard in the proposal, and by the time I was done and I consulted with the people that I was going to work with in Afghanistan, and they said that it's not going to be possible because some people in the villages, I'm not going to name them, or give them a name, they will want money in order for us to do it, they would tax us in a illegal way. And so I decided to put that aside and wrote a proposal to provide people in Afghanistan with clean drinking water. One of the biggest problems in Afghanistan is that a lot of people do not have access to clean drinking water. And often little kids, as I also had that experience when I was a kid, travel far distance away from their house, or often some of them live on top of mountains and hills, and they don't have water there, so they would travel all the way down somewhere to bring water, clean drinking water and carry them in buckets. And so often they even don't have a place or even a far distance place to bring water from, and they just drink water from, just running water that you don't even know what's happening upstream or something. So I had a very short time. I went home for the first month of summer because I had to return back for language school. And I immediately started contracting with different drillers in different areas of Kabul to start digging wells in different places. And I'm going to talk about the locations as well. Originally, I was going to expand this program, the digging wells, to different provinces as well. But when I got to Kabul, there were some problems, security problems. I couldn't travel alone to provinces, and so I decided to reach out the very outskirts of Kabul and different places, a school, kindergarten, mosque, villages in very, very remote areas, refugees who have returned from Pakistan or Afghanistan and now live in mountains or like up hills that because they have lost their properties while they were refugees in different countries. And so I thought that I will have such a difficult time trying to figure out where I would dig these wells. But then as soon as I got to Kabul, I had so many people coming to me saying that, can you please dig a well in our neighborhood? Can you please do it here? We need it here. We need it there. Really, really overwhelming. And I was like, wow, this is just, now it's the other way around. I have a really difficult time now choosing where to do it. So as difficult as that was, in the same time, people were so passionate about having, all of a sudden having like clean water in their neighborhood. And a lot of them also promise that they will keep it sustained. Little children who had to walk, who had to take time off of their, playing to bring water to their families. And now, they had water right next to their house. And just, it was amazing how also whenever people came to me and approached me and they wanted to thank me, thank you so much for doing this project. And, I would tell them, I am just a person I'm a person who is giving you the help from the Davis Foundation and Mrs. Davis. And, they were really happy and they were really, really thankful. And that, a lot of people would come to me like, it's different what we, how we believe in, the USS in Afghanistan, but when we see things like this, that, people care from all over from the other end of the world about us, and, they were really happy. And also this kind of people approaching me about how thankful and happy they were, it also created some problems for me where I was getting angry phone calls from some people who weren't happy about what I was doing. So it was a very interesting experience. Some of the things that I have not anticipated while I was going to do this project. One of the fun parts of this project was that as I was trying to work with the local people, some people got to know about the project and I got more funding. And I was able to dig 9 wells instead of 6 wells that I originally was going to. And then I even had more money to, we had a day in Kabul where everybody was celebrating Environment Day. And so I started to, I went to Kabul University I went to talk to the head of Kabul University. I said, I'm going to provide Kabul University with 30 metal waste in trash bins if you get the students to come out of their classes for 1 hour and pick up something from the ground and put it in the garbage. And because that's something, students, one of the things that we are used to is we eat something and we throw it in the ground, and that's unfortunate. So, and the fact to have the students pick that up, I wanted them to feel, a little responsible and how it feels to clean after themselves. So I knew that they were not going to be ready to do this. So I recruited 30 people from outside the Kabul University, high school students, to come with me to clean Kabul University. So we went there. We started cleaning some areas around Kabul University, and all of a sudden, they started calling us names, and, they had no idea why we were doing this for free, and, so they were staring at us, and then, like, after half an hour, they started they joined us, and then they cleaned as well with us. I mean, it wasn't that at the end the Kabul University was like clean or anything, but I mean, it was clean enough for our students to feel that, wow, we have some responsibility. And I was really glad to hear afterwards that they started like student organizations where they would make, they would meet weekly or every other 2 weeks to clean areas around their faculty or different departments. I think I went over my 7 minutes, right? So I just want to say that when I came back to U.S., I sent some of these pictures and brief reports to friends, and and to some of my friends, and they already, I have like more money for next year to do the same, to replicate the project, and this is something that I think it's needed, and I will continue with this next summer and hoping to do this. Like just a reference to that lady, that was one of the wells that I dig in on top of one of the top hills where they don't have access to clean water, and they come all the way down, like like they travel like half an hour or something to get water, to carry water in like buckets. And when I went to we would go when the well was done, we would go to place and say, okay, it's done, and then we would hear them. They would invite us, like, okay, it's done. Let's. They would thank us and stuff. So this lady, she brought a big tray of like candies and cookies and everything, and she went out and she was like celebrating and distributing cookies and candies to everyone. It was just one of the best moments I ever had, and it's something that this summer. I mean, when I was doing this project, it just made me, every moment, it reconfirmed that why is it that I love my country? It's just the people who are so hopeful, the people who will never give up for, despite so many years of war and despite what is happening in Afghanistan, there's always happy and smiley faces in Afghanistan. And that's one thing that I really love about Afghanistan. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Shujat. I'm a junior from Pakistan.
And I'm Saad. I'm also a junior from Pakistan.
And basically in the project, we have 4 co-founders, and 2 of them, Alex and Nick, they're not here at Middlebury. Both of them are abroad. Alex is in China and Nick is in Oxford for a year. Alex will be back in J-term. And we also had Caroline, who's also a Middlebury student, junior, working with us on the project. And we don't have a PowerPoint presentation, but we do have a documentary that Middlebury College Communications Department made for us, thanks to Kelsey. And so we're going to show that, and afterwards, then we can take any questions that you have. So,
sure. Yeah, the USB.
what does it mean to push the boundaries of creativity at MID? It means spending your summer organizing a one-day unity event in New York City to promote solidarity between the world and the West.
My name is Alexander Kent. I'm from Westchester County, New York, and I'm an International Studies major with focus on the poli-sci and East Asia.
My name is Shujat, and I'm from Pakistan. I'm majoring in physics and economics.
Nick Alexander. I'm majoring in political science and history, and I'm from Australia, but I grew up in Indonesia.
I'm Sadam Khan, and I come from Pakistan, and I'm an economics major and a physics minor.
I'm Caroline Tobin from Brooklyn, New York, a psychology major with a focus on development.
We came to study with the four of us were sitting around in a dorm room, Sad, Shujat, Nick, and I. and you know, sort of getting frustrated with what we would see in the news, and sort of, you know, this downward spiral in the relationship to the Muslim world in the West. And we felt that no one was sort of standing up and saying, it doesn't have to be this way.
I had never been outside my country before I came to the US, and when I came to the US I realized 99% of human beings are 99% the same. And so we basically wanted to create a media-worthy event which would show our common values, our solidarity, our unity. We thought that the media had been overtaken by negative imagery because of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we thought that we needed to show the other side of the story.
Gek Patronzi and Akil Davis aim to celebrate diversity through music. Please put your hands together for Ipadi.
Being students, we had very little exposure to big organizations or important people. So our day is mostly geared towards just making connections, you know, calling people, emailing organizations.
In the beginning, we were just trying to find some way to get even a single speaker or a performer to come to our event. And now, like recently, we've been receiving emails from different performers and speakers who want to speak at our event.
You know, we've had some empty promises from organizations, but we've also gotten a lot of support. Every time we get an email from someone that's saying, you know, this is really inspiring, you know, may God be with you, and that sort of thing, and it's been really great.
There's definitely been certain people who are a little bit, they're skeptical that we can pull it off, or that what we're going to do is actually going to change anything. But the whole point of this is to generate optimism for rebuilding and creating new relationships between the Muslim world and the West. This is just a starting point.
What actually matters on a large scale are the governments and the foreign policies of different countries. But we feel that if we bring changes on a micro level, we will slowly see changes on the macro level as well.
This all boils down to one simple thought. It is better to talk about these things, no matter how difficult they may be, rather than not. For the more we learn about one another, the more we can help each other to reach our respective goals.
It's all about education and making sure that children have an opportunity to build relationships and really not grow up in a world limited by stereotypes and hate.
You need to have a diverse perspective, because when you can look at things from different angles, that's when you discover something, you have an epiphany, you know. That's what creativity is. And I think liberal arts colleges really encourage that kind of thinking.
I think this is a great event because we're building bridges between cultures and societies and individuals. And music serves as a great medium to do that, because it's one language that everybody understands.
It came naturally, I think, right? I mean, it felt like activism is something we should be doing. We all felt like we could change the world, and part of that is Middlebury's spirit.
If red is the color flowing through your veins, why do they put labels on skins that fair to judge? A book by its cover. I had a dream of you and me, sharing this world so peacefully that I said to myself, what a beautiful world.
One of the most important things in life is to seek the truth yourself, you know, never become lazy. Don't have conclusions presented to you on a plate, you know, which is what I think is the root cause for a lot of the problems that we face in the world today. Just be brave and go out and search for the truth, talk to people, understand it.
I feel the change grow beneath my wings. Found another way to live through all the pain. The mind lost.
Well, this was like just a brief summary of the project. We had this event at Washington Square Park. I don't think that was mentioned in the documentary, but it was in Washington Square Park over the summer and in July. And afterward, like if you have any questions, like we'd love to answer them. So that's about it.
Yeah. I guess like one thing to mention is that one of the biggest challenges with this project was because we were doing it in New York City, a city that went through a major tragedy. It was very difficult to encourage people to become involved in this event because people were very sensitive, they're very reticent, and when we would go out and try to hand out like flyers and we would say it's an Islam-based unity event, as soon as people hear the word Islam, they're immediately scared, they're like, oh, maybe we don't want to be associated with this. And it was interesting, like just psychologically, because we tried a different strategy. Next time when we went out, we were like, instead of saying Islam-based unity event, we said peace concert in Washington Square Park. And it was amazing. It was amazing how many more flyers we were able to hand out, because all we wanted was like for people to actually read what was on the flyer. And so we were like, maybe if we just say that it's a peace concert, maybe they'll just take it and read it and realize that this is like something non-political, non-religious. It's about sharing our common values. So yeah, it was a challenge, and if we do it next year again, it should be much bigger. But I think that because we are both really busy with our studies and stuff, so I don't think he'll be doing it again next summer.
But one more thing that I would like to mention here is that it wasn't just coming from the American side. Like all these problems, hesitance to get involved in this. Even the Muslims were like, some of them were intimidated by this thing. They were scared that they were already under so much pressure from the media and all these places. So they were very hesitant in coming out. Some of them, and there were also some who were like, why do we have to explain ourselves to anyone? If we are on the right side, then why do we have to go out and tell anyone that we are right? So that was also a problem that, it was hard for us to send out our message to those people. But, the good thing was that, there were still a lot of people like the NYU Islamic Society. They helped us a lot. And there were still a lot of Muslims in the New York area and even outside the New York area who were really interested in this and who were like, this is a great thing that you're doing, and we always wanted such a thing to happen. And so for the first time, we actually saw Muslims, American Muslims who wanted to come out of their houses and speak for themselves. The one message we tried to send to those people was that there's no one else who's going to come out and speak for them. So it's them who have to come out and tell people what's right and what's wrong. So that was like another interesting side. And if you have any other questions, we'd love to answer them.
Hello, thank you for coming. So the name of our microfinance organization that we made this summer and we worked on is called Amar. And the word Amar means immortality or a never-ending cycle in the language of Marathi. And it's a name that the recipient woman who received the goats came up with during the last week of our stay there.
All right, so as Lisa mentioned, Amar is the microfinance project we started in collaboration with the Comprehensive Rural Health Project in Jamkhed, India. Our sort of mission throughout implementing this project was to firstly, provide recipient women with a livelihood, and secondly, it was to empower them to take control of this project and sort of take it in the direction that they wanted it to go. And so they have control over, the terms of the loans and stuff like that.
Okay. So the basic outline of our presentation, we're first going to give a little background about the project site and the organization in India that we worked through. And then we're going to talk about the process, how do we implement our objectives and goals, and finally we'll talk about the long-term sustainability of Project Amar. Okay, in order to carry out this project, we received grants from two places. One was from the ACE office, where we got $4,000, and other one was from the president's office, where we got $6,000. Okay, so there exists a great discrepancy between the urban side of India and the rural side of India. Now, when we first think about India, we think about there's a lot of talk about the expanding economy or the rapid development in India, but the reality is quite different. And the government in India spends a lot of is highly influenced by the people who are in the elite, rich people who live in the urban areas. So he spends a lot of his money for those people. And as a consequence, what happens is the people in the rural areas don't have access to the resources they should be getting access to. Now, this is very ironic considering the fact that India has about 1.1 billion people right now, the population, and 800 million of those people live on less than $2 a day. Now, Jamkhed village is the project site we worked at this summer, and this is a village, as you can see on the map. It's located in a very rural area of India. CRHP is the Comprehensive Rural Health Project. It's the organization that we worked through this summer, and their primary approach is community-based primary health care. And how they do this is they select village health workers from various parts of the village and teach them about primary health care. So the women go back to their own communities and talk to their community members about how to take care of their health. And the village health workers were very important for this project because they allowed us for the selection process of the recipient woman, as well as insurance of the long-term sustainability for Project Amar.
In terms of the structure, Lisa's going to talk a little bit about our pre-departure preparation, the educational component of the project, and the distribution of the animals to our recipients. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we selected our recipients and sort of the long-term sustainability of Amar.
All right. So before we headed off to India, we got together, we did a lot of research and met with many people to just gather as much information as we could. People who've worked with organizations or have had prior experiences to things like this. And then we planned logistics with the ACE office on flights.
So when we arrived at our project site, we sort of toured the area and got a feel for where we were exactly. And while picking our recipients, we first had interviews with them, just asking them basic questions about their economic and social situation. And then we got this wonderful opportunity to visit their homes and actually see where they live firsthand and talk to their families and see what kind of animals they have. That was really exciting for us. And we consulted with the CRHP team as well because we as outsiders don't necessarily know the real situation of some of the people we were interviewing, and so CRHP sort of helped us out with judging, who really needed the help or the animals that we could provide. So our decisions were, based on women's economic and social situation, but also whether they would be able to repay the loans of the animals we were giving, because it was important to us that our pilot run was successful, because that would sort of establish some credibility and more people would want to join when they see that it was working. So that played a role in us picking our recipients.
Okay, so one of the components of the project was education, and this was divided into two parts. One part was we made a book with the contribution of many artists from Middlebury College, and we came up with a wordless picture book that explained and got the message across about the importance of caring for animals and in what ways you can care for these animals. The picture has a summary in the front page, but the book itself is wordless so that everyone can understand. And we went to primary schools and we read the book with a translator. And the second part was where we had a discussion section with the recipient woman about how to care for their animals and how to ensure the long-term sustainability for these animals. In order to do this, we first had interviews with the farm manager in Jamkhed village to ask about specifically how do goats and cows in Jamkhed, what is the best conditions that they have to be in order to live long and do well, because it's different in every country. And after we did that, we met with the artist and we discussed what kinds of drawings we should have on flashcards that we're going to be using in the educational discussion forum that we were having. Yep.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the pictures?
Okay, so right here we have a picture of the artist's drawing, and this is like we met with the artist almost every day just talking about how we want to carry it out, and he gave us a lot of information from his experience because he had 2 cows as well. And here's a picture of us working with the artist, and this is the school we visited, and we took a picture in the end. And finally here is the educational, the discussion section that we had with the recipient woman. Okay, so what we did in the process of distributing our goats is first we got them insured, and after that we had them immunized, and finally we gave them out, and this was done through a lottery system, so it was fair. And finally, Karina's going to talk a little bit about the contract signing.
So for our pilot round, we gave 4 goats each to 5 women and 1 cow to 1 woman. And the contracts were very, very basic. It was just that they had to return this loan of an animal within the span of 2 years. The reason why there weren't a lot of rules on this contract is because we didn't want to be very autocratic. We wanted the women in the self-help group to sort of regulate themselves and sort of keep track of each other, which was what CRHP sort of told us would be a great way of going about it. And so there weren't a lot of rules on it. And basically, when our pioneer recipients repay their loans, we're hoping to pass the animals along to more and more recipients as time goes by. And so hopefully in the future, every woman who wants to join Amar can. CRHP will help the recipients find markets for their animals or the milk that they want to sell. So they do have that support system apart from the other women in the group.
Okay, so the future of Amar. We're planning, there's going to be a charity concert in December, as well as art exhibitions, which is going to be composed of the artwork that students at Middlebury did to create the primary school book. We also have a website, and through the website you can purchase the books or the flashcards that we made for the education seminars, and you can also join our mailing list and make donations.
All right, we'd really like to thank the President's Office and the ACE Office. The ACE Office was instrumental in us implementing the project, so a big thank you to them, and to Professor Stephen Oster, who was the faculty advisor for the Academic Endowment Fund, and the artists for the book. And in India, we'd really like to thank Shobha and Ravi Arole, who helped us tirelessly to implement the project. We wouldn't have been able to do this without them. Our translators and the artist who drew such gorgeous artwork. It was amazing to work with him. And the farm manager for just talking to us about the animal situation in Jamshedpur.
Hello. Hi. My name is Matt.
And I'm Tenzing.
Yeah, and our project is called Student Friends of Tibetan Refugees. So the main idea for our project was to get students both in the U.S. and Nepal involved with the Tibetan refugee community in Nepal, specifically in Kathmandu and communities in the northeast part of the country. So we're going to kind of go chronologically here through the process. The way it started was I took a class on Tibetan Buddhism with visiting Professor Cameron Warner last fall and got really interested in what was going on in Tibet and China and the places where Tibetans were moving to. And when I saw the email for Projects for Peace, I got really excited about it, started calling people, interviewing people, and that's when I met Tenzin. I interviewed him to see what his perspective was on it and asked him to join me. So we worked really hard on our proposal. We worked just about every day calling people, emailing people. You know, it was pretty much more than a fifth class. And we were not granted the Davis Projects for Peace, but even after that, we felt like we put so much work into it, we had to keep going with it. So we were persistent and ended up getting funding from President Leibowitz' office, and I received a fellowship, and Tenzin also received a fellowship. So we got enough money to do what we wanted to do. And you want to do it?
Yeah, so the present situation of refugees in Nepal, a lot of Tibetans have been migrating to India and Nepal and settling there after the Chinese occupation in Tibet. And there are still a lot of Tibetans who migrate to Nepal, like crossing the borders, the Himalayan borders. And few of them have relatives in Kathmandu, in Nepal and India where they can move and settle with them, while there are still a lot of refugees who have nowhere to go. And so although there is a Tibetan refugee reception center, we are planning to work there and get involved in that center and work with students who can help there. Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing we got to working on when we got to Nepal was to set up a volunteer relationship between a school for Tibetan students called Sangstran Brakudi High School and an elderly home for Tibetan refugees. And the first thing we did, this is where we lived in Kathmandu. That's a photo from the roof. And so the interview day, the basic idea was we'd hold a contest for the students of the high school to write the best essay on the elders who lived there. So the students went and met people who came, walked over the Himalayan passages to Nepal and learned about their life and wrote an essay. And we gave out prizes to the best essay. So this kind of got the relationship going, and the students just got really excited about these people in the community who literally lived it was a 5-minute walk down the road, and they'd never been there. Most of them didn't even know this place existed. So that was really cool, and the students got really into it, and the elders were just elated. They could not believe that these young people were coming to visit them. So these are some photos.
And so our project initially, we focused on mostly working with the Tibetan Refugee Reception Center. We were working with President Rinchen. He's the president of Office of Tibet in New York. While working with him, we formed the proposal, and we decided to work with the reception center. But when we got to the reception center in Kathmandu, it was a complete change because there were no refugees in the reception center, so we couldn't carry on our project at all. So it was a big failure at that moment. Yeah. Because there were no refugees in the center because of the Olympics, the border between Nepal and China was blocked, so there were no refugees coming to Nepal. So we couldn't do anything in the reception center, so we had to change our project's direction, focusing on Tibetan refugees, but in other aspects how we could help them. So we decided, the president of Tibet office in Kathmandu wasn't so helpful because he wasn't supportive and he wasn't suggesting us any ways of helping them, but he just wanted us to fund him with money. That's all they wanted. But anyways, we found a way to get in contact with Nima. He's the settlement officer, and he manages a lot of Tibetan settlement areas in rural places of Nepal. So after getting in touch with him, we decided that we would do the second part of the project where Matt would go to Jalsa, one where there is a village, Tibetan village, and I would go to Kanchenjunga, the eastern hills of Nepal, where there's another Tibetan settlement area. And Matt will talk to you more about his part of the project.
Yeah, so after a big failure of our project, or what seemed like a failure at the time, we kind of redirected, met this guy Nima, who was a huge help, and I went to Chelsa, which is in the Solo-Khumbu region of Nepal. It's very green and hilly. It's an incredibly beautiful place. And this settlement was founded in 1960, just after Tibetans started fleeing in large numbers from Tibet. And it's a Tibetan refugee settlement. And back in the 60s and 70s, it was doing very well with their apple production. They would sell their apples and apple juice and things like that in town and ship it to Kathmandu. But with the petrol prices rising, they were having a really hard time making money and sending their kids to school. So what we basically looked at, or what I looked at when I was there, was the schools and things that they needed and how we could help. So these are some of the kids I have the privilege of working with. So these are all children of Tibetan refugees who came over. These children were born in Nepal, but they're families of Tibetan refugees, and they're really having a hard time paying for their food and schooling, and they don't have things like pens and pencils to write with. So we were able to bring I was able to bring a lot of school supplies, and we set up the Chelsea Scholarship Fund, which will be continuing to fund these 11 students, or 10, and when she goes to school.
And are you done?
Yeah, go ahead.
For my part of the project, I went to Pole, which is another Tibetan settlement area in eastern Nepal. It took me 5 days of walking to get to the village. And after I got there, there's a small government school in Pole, and that school teaches Tibetan language, which is really important for us because we have been working on preserving our language and culture in exile. So since that school is the only one offering Tibetan, a lot of students from other villages, they have to walk for about 2 days just to come to that school. They're in the school, they're enrolled in the school, but they have to walk for about 2 days just to study. So a lot of students from other villages stay in that village with host families so that they can study Tibetan as well as other subjects. But for them, they need money so that they can live with the host families. They have to pay for their accommodations. So I interviewed the 15 kids who were from other villages who went to the school, and we funded the school with its electricity, so they could have electricity in the school. And we also donated books and pencils, and yeah, it was great. And these are the children that I worked with. This was during July 6th, His Holiness' birthday, so they're all celebrating it together. And these are the ones who I interviewed.
Okay, so we went back to Kathmandu after our respective adventures, and we got once again involved with the Songstrom School and Sering Elderly Home. And we wanted to set up a volunteer relationship that would last after we left. And we asked the Sering Elderly Home what they needed most, and they said medical funds, because they didn't have enough money to send their residents to the hospital when they needed to go there. And also, they used to have this great garden in the back about 10 years ago, but they didn't have enough money or employers to keep it up and make it look nice, because the elders love to hang out in there. So we brought, this time, 10th graders. The 9th graders did the interviews, but the 10th graders came back, and we basically turned a huge pile of rocks into a garden. So this is about halfway through the day, and the work ethic that these kids have was it was very moving and unbelievable. They felt great to be involved with their own community and to be doing something good for these people. So we planted a lot of flowers. We moved this entire half of the garden was covered with boulders and bricks, and they just carried them all day long and got their uniforms really dirty. So we got a garden started, and they're going to be going back 2 to 3 times a month to continue visiting and talk. So half of the students were visiting with the elders and talking with them, and half of them were working in the garden or doing other odd jobs like laundry and things like that needed to be done. Okay, so basically at the end of the summer we had done 4 main things. Mm-hmm. We had set up a volunteer relationship that was sustainable, we hope, between the school and the elderly home. We set up a scholarship fund for Chelsea students to be able to write and have enough food to go to school. We set up a scholarship fund for Pole students to board in the town where the school is, so they didn't have to walk 2 days. And we also set up a medical fund for the Staring Elderly Home. We saw a lot of need and people asking for money for a ton of different things, and it was hard to decide what we would give the money to or what we could help with and raise funds for. And also, it wasn't our initial plan to just give money. Mm-hmm. We wanted to have something more sustainable and
or hands-on.
On the ground, hands-on things. But we think we did that with the volunteer relationship, and so that was basically our summer.
And our future plans.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So we're working on, we'll be working on a website, the J-term, so we can put the interviews of the students and the elders online. And we'll be looking for sponsors and donors. So if you're interested, please contact us.
Yeah. Yep. And we could have filled this entire time with failures we had during this entire project. No problem. So we're really excited we had something good to talk about. And we had an amazing summer. So.
All right, thank you.
So the question was, how big was language an issue when I was there? I would say because I was working through CRHP, which there was 3 people who spoke English there, and I also had Perna. We also had translators. It wasn't a major problem on my part, but I understand like how language can be a very big problem. That's one of the reasons that I didn't want to just go into the village and be like, I'm gonna like make these changes. I wanted to really work through people who could speak the language and who could really initiate the changes indirectly.
For me, it was very difficult. Tenzin luckily speaks Nepalese and Tibetan because he's from Nepal and lives with a Tibetan family. So he was able to translate for me whenever I needed it. But in terms of learning the language, it was incredibly difficult because on the streets and whenever I wanted to do something, I was trying to learn Nepalese. But when I was doing business and meeting with people that we had to do work with, they were speaking Tibetan. So it was very difficult. I got to the point where I could understand what they were talking about, but I couldn't really respond to it anyway. So it was definitely doable, especially if you have a friend or someone there who can translate.
I have a question more directed towards Shabana and Shusha side, I guess. My question is, how is it that you dealt with the kind of adversity that you faced? I mean, I know Shabana, you alluded to that in your presentation, and Shusha, you started to talk about how certain Muslims, didn't feel like they had a responsibility to kind of justify themselves or how Americans were just apathetic to it when they think of it.
Well, like it wasn't just like we also, the problems that we were also facing were not just limited to the people supporting us, but we also needed funding from different sources because in the beginning we had $10,000 from the Davis Foundation, but what our estimated costs were, they were around $17,000. So we also had to generate funds from different organizations, we contacted different Meda alums, and they were pretty gracious. And there were other companies who also sponsored us. For example, our office space was Jones Lang LaSalle. They gave us an office space in Citigroup Center. So it was not just limited to the support of the people, but basically we were just we were determined, and we knew that we were doing the right thing, and we didn't let one day of failures stop us from working the next day even harder and trying to spread our message. And another thing that we tried to do was to contact the Imam of the New York University NYU Islamic Center, and we pitched our project to him first, and we had him talk to different people. So he talked to different organizations, different people, and we were in contact with some with influential people, some really influential musicians and other people in the New York area. So they spread our message as well. But it's just that whenever you're giving out brochures in any big city, a lot of people won't really, they're so busy that they don't really want to see what's written on the brochure. So that was definitely a problem. But we never let any problem stop us, and we were hopeful that a lot of people will like this idea. And if 10 people disagreed with us and even one person agreed with us, that was a sign of hope. So that's how I think we kept on going.
Yeah, that pretty much summarizes the answer. Yeah, I was just saying that pretty much summarizes the challenges we faced and how we overcame them. If there's anything more specific that you want to know? Okay.
Well, I don't think I understood the question, but I think you asked what challenges we faced or how we got help from people, right? There.
What kind of, how you dealt with the adversity? I mean, I know you mentioned how some people were calling you.
Well, one of the very first things that I actually wanted to have someone from Middlebury to go with me, but it was difficult, with the airfare and what I was actually planning to do. So when I went there, I was trying to work very closely with the local people, and I was, in the same time, I only had a month to do, to dig all 9 wells at the same time, and I also had to deal with the issue of getting visa to come back to United States. And you don't hear this, but I went to Pakistan illegally to to apply for a U.S. visa. So, Shajad, you didn't hear that, right? Well, we could erase that, right? So, I mean, those are the kind of challenges, really difficult, traveling by road to apply for a U.S. visa to come back, and at the same time dealing with 9 different drillers to, end up to digging wells in different areas. And but I had, one of the great things was that whenever I approach someone for help, especially, I'm part of a youth network in Afghanistan who are doing volunteer work throughout the country by different means of going to orphanages, helping them, or distributing books and all of that kind of stuff, planting grass or trees and everything. So I contacted them, and they also were very, very helpful. I mean, but these are the things that when you put yourself into doing such work, then there are so many unanticipated things that you learn so much from. That, because you have to face it, and then it comes to you, and then you learn so much from just dealing with it on the spot. And oh, actually, I wasn't expecting phone calls, but apparently I was getting phone calls, things like that. So, but overall it was a great experience. I mean, one of the things that for me in Afghanistan, I would say these things needs to happen more, so that when they call us, if it's 1 person or 2 person, then they can easily call us and say things. But if there's a group of us, if it's there's tons and thousands of us, then they will be probably don't know, they would be tired of calling everybody to say these things, hopefully. So it's just a matter of also initiating things, somebody has to start something, and that's one of the things that makes that just the first step of bringing change in a community, to initiate things. And so it was a great experience.
For the Amar group, I wanted to know what was your relationship with CRHB like, first off, and second, what did you feel like you brought to them? How was your mission sort of different from theirs?
Well, this is on. Okay. Lisa worked with them the previous summer. She was there for a little while, and she can talk a little bit about her experience there. But I hadn't worked with them before, and I just got onto the project this year. And our relationship with them was, obviously, with us being in the U.S., we didn't have that ground, the knowledge of how things work on the ground over there, and so we sort of worked with them on figuring out what sort of relationship they have with the people that they're working with already, and sort of just finding out like what the situation is over there. So that was really important for us because we had that disconnect, obviously, because we were here. And in terms of what we brought to them, we sort of brought the idea of helping people out and that sort of outlet for them to sort of help us do something more with the people that they were helping already. And so it was a different sort of program that we set up with them. But obviously, you know, they were on the ground. They'd been working there for the last 38 years. And so they had established themselves very, very well. And so we were working under their auspices. But it was like a project, a different project from what they were doing there. Because they were based on, their projects are based on primary health care and sort of building respect in the community and equality for all people. And this was sort of more of an economic empowerment side of it.
So the main point here is that, like, Project Amur is sort of like under the umbrella of CRHP. And CRHP, their main focus is community-based primary health care, where they focus on people, working with people and how they can improve sanitation problems and such. Whereas Amur, we're focused more on working with animals and how can we help these people indirectly by giving them animals and having this long-term sustainability to generate a form of peace.
Well, you know, as I mentioned in the video, like, you know, what actually matters is, as you just said, like foreign policies and changes on the macro level. But we thought that if we start this process, because, you know, someone has to start this thing, and it's really hard for someone to start from the top, you know, like trying to propose a policy change in Washington or something like that. But you know, so we thought that if we started off on a small level from one city, then you could slowly see an impact on a larger scale. A lot of my friends in Pakistan, you know, who are friends who are studying in other countries like England or, you know, other places, Canada, they've been really excited about this project, and they're planning on, you know, continuing this in their respective cities in different parts of the world, including Pakistan, because saying that, you know, this misperception about the other side exists only inside the U.S. is, I think, would be a bit biased. And so there's definitely there are problems with the Muslim world as well, and they have a lot of misperceptions about the U.S. And that's basically what we wanted to tell them, that, you know, this project has been funded by the Davis Foundation, which is not a Pakistani organization or, you know, sponsored by a Muslim organization. So. So you know, like what we were expecting was, you know, we weren't expecting a huge impact in the first year, but still we got a pretty a decent impact in the New York area, New York, New Jersey, and the surrounding areas. And there are people in different cities who are willing to continue this in the future, and in other countries as well. So that's one side of it. And other than that, we we were hoping was that we would get some media coverage, and because the event you have is on one day, and afterward it's just media and the recordings and everything that really matters. So we had BBC, ARY, and a couple of other news channels at our event, so they gave it coverage. And but I absolutely agree that these are things that would matter. Like if you want to see an impact on a larger scale, there needs to be a change in foreign policy, but there has to be a start, and we thought that if we started on this level, that will slowly result in a larger change.
Okay, I'm just gonna say quickly that how I felt seeing the results. I mean, it was just as I said before, it's amazing to see that you can do something for a group of people. And well, I mean, I really did try to dig the wells in different locations, and one of the places I dug the well was in a mosque. And saying that this well is here, I'm digging this well, and the money comes from an American woman. And obviously people in that neighborhood are so happy, they were benefited from that. And then they were giving me phone calls that in Afghanistan, people go to mosque prayers every day, 5 times a day. And then they were saying thank yous after at the end of every day, their prayers, saying thank you to me and to the Davis Foundation. And I'm also very sure that one of the reasons I got that call was that some people didn't want to see Afghans thanking an American woman in a mosque. So it's also, you're also making people question that actually there's a different side to it. Yes, bad things happen in Afghanistan, but then there are also the people of the United States who care, to the people of Afghanistan. And I mean, it's great, that we, as a student from Afghanistan, I feel that this is part of my responsibility to, always, bridge the gap that exists between the people. I mean, it's different when it happens in a government to government, but between the people, to just talk to them and see, I have seen a different side, and here's what I can do from that different side as well, and that makes a huge difference. Just like I also had in the same time a TV interview with in a very conservative TV station, where they were telling me, I was talking in one of the questions asking what's your message to the families who are really, who are hesitant to send their kids to U.S. because, they will change, or they will, all these things that they have, coming an Afghan girl coming to U.S. And I said, I don't have any message, but, you can look at me. I mean, I was an Afghan. I believe that I was an Afghan, and I am Afghan, and I will die Afghan. And, I mean, this is really up to you, or up to the personnel family. So just also that people thinking that there's a different side, I mean, that's a huge, making people question things also is makes a huge difference, and it's a big, first step. People say things. So, thank you.
I just want to thank the Rohatyn Center for hosting today. It was fantastic. And also the Alliance for Civic Engagement for all of their help and for co-sponsoring. And the students, thank you for sharing your stories of your summer. Thanks, everyone.